All right. Let's see what this looks like. What if I? Is this more intimate? More engaging, maybe? Shall we?
Mentirosa. Liar.
Hey, welcome back. Okay, so this is Post-Mortem 2 for I Lie. Now, in this particular project, unfortunately for me, it was just me by myself making it. So it's just going to be me talking. I'm going to try to remember a certain number of details. You know, it's a number of years ago. Some of these videos, it's more of a diary, you know, because every film that you make is so personal, especially to the particular moment that you're putting it together in. So I'm just excited to try to recount particular details, remember certain elements, why certain things were cut together. And I'll do my best to keep it moving and keep my mind being jogged as I'm by myself, because most of these I'll be with others having conversations. But, you know, let's tell a story for each film, why not? So, this is for I Lie. Enjoy. So, filmmaking a lot of times is with a tremendous amount of people, a whole team of people, and I love the collaborative nature of cinema. Some of my favorite moments have been in larger groups of people making films. But for I Lie specifically, it was generally just me. At that time of my life, I had jumped on a train to leave Ohio, heading to San Francisco to sleep on my sister Amber's couch. The couch was 2 inches too short for my body. And when I first got there, the question in San Francisco is, how will you make money? How will you get on your feet? Within the first couple weeks, I started working at a dog walking company and at Starbucks. And before you knew it, I was on a bunk bed in a friend's apartment. But during that time, I suddenly was able to get a job at a film school. And I hadn't gone to film school, even though I had made this resume that said I had gone to film school to get this job. But I got that job, and while there, I was able to interact with now my favorite camera, the Bolex, for the first time, and got to learn how to shoot with the Bolex and 16mm film. And so the film I Lie was the very first project I ever did with the Bolex. I was given 6 rolls of black and white 72-22 film stock. Now, a really significant factor from going from digital into film was this idea that you really have to be precise about what you're shooting. Every roll of film is 3 minutes of shooting at 24 frames a second. Now, some people say it's 2 minutes and 40 seconds of shooting at 24 frames a second. But the truth is, there's a little counter on the side of a Bolex. I have my Bolex next to me, actually. This little tiny counter. Let's see, right here. It has a little line that goes up to 0, and they say that you're supposed to run the roll once you've loaded the new roll of film into the side of the camera. So, takes 100-foot rolls of film, It's only 3 minutes of shooting. Now, again, if you're not rolling all the way to the 0, I believe you can get 3 minutes of shooting out of a roll. And sometimes the shots have to do with these, these beautiful roll-ins and roll-out of rolls. But going back to the specifics about digital versus film, I was incredibly excited by those limitations. This idea that you have 6 rolls of film and you have to come up with something that can become a cohesive story. But since you only have about 3 rolls of shooting per roll and you have 6 rolls of film, what is that? 12. Oh man, let me just make sure my math. Of course, okay, 18 minutes. Because you end up having that limitation, the question for me was, what could you make in this moment? Now, being at this film school for the very first time, one thing that was really exciting to me is I suddenly had access to a selection of experimental cinema. And being back in Cincinnati, Ohio, when I was making a lot of movies, I had never seen much of experimental cinema. Now, I had seen some things, but the genre of experimental cinema didn't even fully, I don't know, it didn't click in my head until I was at that film school in San Francisco. So at this moment, I'm thinking about the fact that I'm excited as hell to be in a film school, having this opportunity, but any moment they might look at my references and realize that I had lied on my resume to get the job. So I was freaking out about that. And then I was looking at all this experimental cinema that was blowing my mind. So there was a moment where I was kind of sitting there at the film post, at the film school, and leaning back in the chair and thought to myself, gosh, I lie. And then the title just clicked in my head. And instead of seeing the word I, the letter I saw an eyeball. And then I started thinking about the beauty of this 26 millimeter lens, this Switzhard 26 millimeter lens that popped up. Oh, let's replay this. But the close-ups were shot with a 26 millimeter Switzhard lens, and that lens is so special, so beautiful. All the close-ups of eyes, and a lot of the shots are shot with that, but then also a 75. But I was so excited about this project because as soon as the idea hit me to do an experimental documentary, one, it was completely out of my wheelhouse because I had never done anything documentary at that point. And getting into this project, it felt like there was no limitations. In a normal narrative film, you're cutting from scene to scene, location to location. But in this movie, I wanted it to almost feel like we're going from psyche to psyche. So instead of going from one wide shot of a location to another one, I'm always trying to go into the mind through these extreme close-ups and then coming out someplace else. So at this moment, another factor in this project that was really exciting was I didn't know any of these people until we actually shot. So the artist, I just, all these people, I had a bunch of film in my bag, in my Bolex, and I was walking around San Francisco, and I'd come up on somebody and say, hey, do you want to shoot something with me? Now, I knew that because I had 6 rolls of film, then I was able to do 1 roll of film per person. So I was able to design the shoot that way. So I'd shoot a number of extreme close-ups, and then I'd shoot their close-up. The funny thing is when he's speaking on his breakup, he's actually reflecting on a lie he said in the 1st grade, even though it feels so relevant and so current. But another factor that came out of this project that was really intriguing was I went into this knowing I wanted to tell a story through the lies we tell. I knew that I was going to ask people and have them say 2 lies to the camera, and through making the movie, looking back, I suddenly realized that everyone's lies came from a place of they felt badly for lying to their significant others. And so everyone's lies came from a similar place, and that right there ended up being the real nugget of excitement coming out of the project, because there was suddenly this feeling of, oh, you can learn something from this. You know, there's something actually coming from this cinema. So, I mean, is it documentary? Is it experimental? I'm not 100% sure. I've made a couple other movies in this vein. This is the first film that I had done on the Bolex. After this, I had worked on a movie called My Flesh, My Blood I'll release in the future that's also done in a similar construction of images, if you will. And now in 2024, I've been working on a feature-length film entirely shot on my Bolex called Devoted in Time, and that'll take this structure even further. I love all these images, though. These people, they're all so intriguing. All right, let me think. Is there anything else? The sound design is incredibly special to me. It was a very fast turnaround. I basically got the film on a Friday, shot all of it over the weekend, came back in on the Monday, sent it off for processing, got the film back from the lab. We digitized it. Spectra was the lab in the processing. It was mailed to them from the Academy of Art. And then the sound design, I was sitting on my sister's couch. I was 2 inches too short for my body. And I would just take this 4-track around all over and record audio from the roof and all over the place in the picture. And yeah, so a lot of what you're hearing through the sound design is different soundscapes all over San Francisco that I mixed. I really, really love sound design. I feel like when you're putting together sound design, you're actually building an orchestra of feelings and emotions. Some other films I've made in the past that I'll put out into the ether here soon really explored sound design. There's many moments in my life where I'd be in an argument with somebody or something, and we'd be outside and going back and forth, and then suddenly a car alarm is going off in the background. And it would always occur to me in the moment, like, wow, it's really pissing me off that I can hear that car alarm out there. And so sometimes I try to put that into the sound design. I mean, even when I'm writing a screenplay, I'll sit down and think about the sounds will really cause me to have ideas about story and character. The close-up of her eyes are some of my favorite images. And the human skin, the cheek, it's such an intriguing photograph. I'm a little under the weather for this video, but I think I've touched on a lot of the basis of making this movie. Through making things on the Bolex, I've really come up with a lot of ideas. Some things about editing longhand and then digitizing and edit. There's a lot of stuff I want to experiment with in the future. A lot of great filmmakers to look at if you're interested in Bolex filmmaking. You should look at Mark Jenkins. He made a movie called Bait, and NS Men are great films. Ben Rivers is a filmmaker I really love that made a movie 2 Years at Sea, and a lot of other pictures with a Bolex and many other film cameras. But within limitation is complete freedom. And that's the way you should look at any limitations you have in front of you. So, I hope you enjoy the movie. Hope you enjoy this conversation. And if there's any other thoughts or feelings, reach out. And until the next time. All right, well, I have to put these images back together here. So, I hope something made sense in all of that. I know most of the time when I'm making movies, I try not to think too much about why certain choices are being made when they're being made. It's like there's a certain element of it I want to know, and there's a certain element I want to be surprised. And so it's finding some kind of peace in that surprise. You know, finding a piece of, one, it's so much pressure. If you take money to make a movie, or if you're just making it simply because you want to take the time, well, that's an even more precious resource, is anyone's time. So, some of it has to just be complete exploration. It has to have some kind of essence that even I shouldn't comprehend. But hope you enjoyed. Until the next time.